welcome to the podcast, Tamer Kattan.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Without doubt, and there's no searching through the 200 and odd episodes I've done, without doubt, the coolest name that we...
Oh, thanks. Dude, I feel the same way about your name.
Oh, really?
Tom O'Mahony. That is the coolest name.
Yeah, they made it pretty simple on me there, Tamer. Okay, my initials are my first name. It's not... they weren't expecting it. That's true. They were...
See, that's super cool to me because I living in New York, I had a friend who's an Irish kid, Irish American, different than you guys, and his dad was a homicide detective from Queens. And this kid, like every time we'd go over to his house when we were kids, he'd be like, "Oh, see that table over there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's murder furniture." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What's murder furniture?" He's like, "Oh, sometimes my dad investigates a murder, and if the guy doesn't have any family and it's a nice table, he'll bring it home." So they...
That's the most fucking Irish thing I've ever heard.
So they had like random pieces of furniture. His name's Christopher Carley. He's a comic in New York. He's one of my best friends. So like all around their house, they'd have like different random pieces of murder furniture that his dad...
That sounds exactly like my old man. He'd be like, "But sure, I mean, he's not using it. I mean, come on, it's
So to me, you guys are super exotic because my name in my country is like Tom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Egyptian. So actually, Tamer's a Turkish name.
Oh, yeah. But do you know, it's funny you say that because something happened my Google, right? Back every year, there's a thing called Seachtain na Gaeilge, which is the week of Irish, and everything, that's national, they try and put a little Irish spin on it to try and, reinvoke the accent, the national language and all the rest of it. It's just a diddly, but Google will change, like all your Google, and you can ask for it to change back to all English, across the top where it says news, images. Well, and mine didn't change back. No, it's supposed to change. And I typed in, I was actually looking for a picture for you for later on the week when I put this out. And I typed in Tamer, and it for some reason thought, "Oh, you obviously want to translate these words you've written down, Tamer Kattan." Now,
well, you know what's funny about my name? My first name is Tamer, but when I performed in France, I didn't realize that my name in French means your mother. Tamer, Tamer. Like, and then there was one time I performed with an English comic named Nick, and when you put our names together, Nick Tamer means F your mother.
Nice.
It's crazy that my name alone is kind of an insult. You could go up to someone in the street and go Tamer, and they'll like start a fight with
you. Yeah, it's basically saying your mama. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Kattan, then that was the one they didn't know what to do with Tamer, but with Kattan, for some reason it went, "Oh, you want to change from Turkish, bypass English, and go straight to Irish, and then go," and it actually means on Urlor, which means from the floor. So you're...
Oh, that's funny. Because it means in Egyptian Arabic, it comes from cotton, because our family was like Egyptian cotton manufacturers, like way back. Yeah, so it means cotton.
And when did you move to the States then from Egypt? Because I know you told me, because we did a show that isn't released yet for the Laughter Lounge that we're not allowed to talk about just yet. I mean, I'm sure we're fucking allowed to talk about, but when did you move to the States then?
I was eight when I left Egypt. My dad left first, actually, for America, and lived there for almost a year and a half before we came, because he wanted to go and like save money and stuff. We didn't know how scary it was going to be or how hard it was going to be.
Yeah. And what part of Egypt did you grow up in?
In Cairo and Alexandria. But like my people come from Alexandria, because I'm part Greek. Like my grandmother's 100% Greek. She's like red-haired, green-eyed, barely spoke Arabic. And Alexandria was a lot of Greek people live there, because it was the place where Alexander the Great lived with Cleopatra.
So, hence your awesome mustache. I mean, Jesus, man, that's...
Yours is pretty badass too. I mean, yours is...
It's all right.
Like bounty hunter and professional wrestler. It's awesome.
I don't know. It happened. Do you know? I didn't. When you just don't plan a thing out, you're like, well, let's see where to stop it, and it just kept on.
Well, it's awesome, man. I'm envious of it.
Because you have like a 1902 boxer look going on. Where.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I do, because my wife is like really big into Tom Selleck, and I didn't know. I think when she convinced me to grow the mustache, she's like, "Yeah, you look like Tom Selleck." And the only thing that happened is kids in the street just kept yelling, "It's a Mario!" And I'm like, and the whole time I was going for Bronson. I didn't get either. I wanted Bronson. She wanted Magnum PI. And we got Mario.
There's definitely Bronson there. All right. Yeah. I can definitely see Bronson who's been on holidays,
Yeah, Bronson after some therapy.
Because God bless you. I've shaved my head a bunch of times and I'm not far off needing it soon enough permanently, but you have a great shaped head. I'm
thanks,
jealous.
man.
I've got dents all over my head and stuff. I make small children cry when they look directly at me. It's
yeah, I got lucky. I had a mom with OCD, so she was constantly turning my head, rolling me around in the bed.
I think mine is self-inflicted from being a childhood of growing up in the countryside of, did I fall off that thing? That's basically it's the album of my life. Did I just fall off that thing?
That's awesome. I like that.
What it must have been it must have been some wet towel to the face to go from Cairo/Alexandria to New York.
Oh yeah, man. It was so weird. Like I used to tell my friends all the time, moving from Egypt to America wasn't like moving to another country. It was like moving to the future. Like,
really?
Oh man, like I hate when my mom will post pictures of me from when I was a kid because it looks like I was born in 1912. like Egypt was just so bad. Like all my toys used to make me bleed. Like they're all like metal and rusted and like smelled of gasoline. Like they were just like Egypt was just awful, man. Like it was. Then you get to America and it was like, I remember we got to America and like we were in a shopping mall. And it was the first time we'd seen an escalator. And I was a kid, so I'm like, oh, this is just moving stairs. It looks fun. And my mom's like, no. And she like pulled me and I fell down the escalator.
It's cursed.
Like, yeah, man. Like it was a big move in a lot of ways for sure. And culturally, just, you could not have a more different culture. Like American, from Egyptian to American is so different.
I can only imagine because we had as many Irish families growing up, we had the American cousins, who were like second generation or whatever, and they'd come home in summer, during the summer or whatever. And Jesus, they're rocking like Miami Dolphins jackets, and it's 1980s Ireland, where you're rocking your older sister's jumper, basically.
Yeah.
So
that was me in Egypt. When I'd go to Egypt, I guess I was the Irish version of the kid in the Dolphins jumper. Even when it's funny because I left Egypt when I was 8. So when I go back, I went back during the Arab Spring, during the protests, and I performed there during the protests. It was crazy, like fires in the street, buildings on fire, like crazy political graffiti. And I remember we were at this dinner at this big restaurant, and I told my uncle, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he's like, I'll go with you. And I'm like, you don't need to go with me. I'm like, I'm a covered in tattoos boxer, like, come on, from New York, like, you don't need to go with me, and I speak Arabic. He's like, okay. He's like, well, the bathroom's far. I'm like, I speak Arabic, don't worry about it. But I left Egypt when I was 8, so my Arabic is different.
It's an 8-year-old's Arabic.
That's exactly right. So I'm walking across this huge hotel, and I go up to this guy, I'm like, inevitably I couldn't find the bathroom, so I asked this waiter, I'm like, hey, excuse me, where's the bathroom? And he just starts laughing. And I'm like, what? And he goes, oh, sir, I'm so sorry. It's straight down that way and then to the left. I go, can you just tell me, why are you laughing? He's like, where are you from? And I go, I'm from here. He goes, no, you're not. And I go, no, I'm Egyptian, but I live in New York. He's like, oh, your accent's awesome. And I go, but what do you mean my accent? Is that why you're laughing? He's like, no. He's like, you wanted to say, where's the bathroom? And I go, yeah. He goes, what you actually said is, I have to go pee-pee.
That's adorable.
So this grown man sleeved in tattoos with a scar next to his eye. I'm like, excuse me, I have to go pee-pee. Where can I go pee-pee?
That can go one of two ways, kind of. It's like, that's cute. Look, he's from, but also you could be creeped out by going, there's a tattooed man staring at me, telling me he needs to go pee-pee.
Oh yeah, man. I think he thought I was like special needs.
Where are you coming to us live from today? I know I sound like I'm speaking on the fucking Eurovision here, but you are kind of, you are the Eurovision man. Your base is in 3 different places typically, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm actually in London now. I just last night was a big milestone for me. I opened for Eliza Schlesinger at the Apollo.
Ooh.
And it was,
tell us about that. That
it was incredible.
Fucking hell. Full house playing to that. That's a big ass stage.
Full house, 5,000 people. It was like such a bucket list moment. Yeah, it was very, very cool. And yeah, man, I mean, I got married during the pandemic, you know, and leaving New York for me as a comic, terrifying.
Of course.
You know, I was really scared to go. But my wife is like from the woods in Sweden. And dude, like when she was living in Barcelona, I don't know if I told you this whole story, but like I met her over Bumble when I was in New York. And when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of money. So I used to use YouTube to kind of virtually travel, you know, and just like visit the places I'd want to go to as a way to motivate me to work hard and stuff. And I was in New York, and man, New York during the pandemic was terrifying.
Was it really? Was it?
Oh, dude, man. I lived in the Lower East Side. So I was like, you know, in the lower part of New York, but at the end of Manhattan, right before the Brooklyn Bridge. So one side of me was Chinatown. The other side of me was the projects that Jay-Z grew up in. You know, it was, and so during a normal life in New York, there's so much noise from normal people that you couldn't hear the noise from the crazy people.
Yes, I'm with you.
Right?
Yeah.
But then when the normal people got quarantined, all of a sudden you could hear the crazy people. So all night I could hear gunshots. I could hear homeless people having sex. I could hear people fighting in the streets, people getting stabbed. Like, it was intense, man. And I was in this tiny little room in the Lower East Side. So I just got on Bumble, and Bumble had this feature called Passport where you could put yourself anywhere in the world. So I think it was like I knew to do that mentally. Like, I needed to escape the way a sick dog eats grass, you know, like, it just knows, like, this is what I need to do. So I did that and didn't think I'd meet anyone, but I met this Swedish girl that was living in Barcelona, and we spoke for like 6 hours a day because we were both quarantined, you know?
Right. Yeah.
We really got to know each other. And I had like a backwards profile. I just wrote all the things about me that sucked because I didn't think I was going to meet anyone, you know? I just wanted to
give us a snapshot. What are we talking here? Like,
you're inevitably going to ask, why am I single? Here's why I'm single. I'm selfish. I'm defensive. I was abused as a kid. So I'm hyper defensive. I go, I'm 49. I grew up rough. I grew up, you know, I'm still into punk rock music. I love stand-up comedy. That's what I do for a living. So it's a little bit like being a single dad. And comedy's my kid, and my kid is a brat. And so people don't want to date me. I go, you know, and she kind of wrote back with a very similar profile going, hey, I'm selfish too. And I had a rough childhood, and I also love comedy. And she had a tattoo on her forearm that said, it's good to be the king, which is a line from a Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah.
And she looked just like Pippi Longstocking to me. She had, you know, really bright red hair and like beautiful blue eyes and like this like silky, milky skin. I sound like such a murderer right now.
Yeah, just gonna say, you're teeing her up. This is
oh, dude, but she was just the polar opposite of me, you know? Like, I felt like she was from another planet.
Yeah.
And we just hit it off, and she was so funny and stuff. And we just talked every day. And then she told me that her flatmates, because of the pandemic, had moved back to Germany. So she was living alone in this apartment in Barcelona. And her and I both had COVID immediately and recovered from it. So back then it was like, yeah, we were like, dude, I was walking around New York, taking the subway because I was recovered. So I was on the subway alone. I was walking through an empty Times Square. It was like being Will Smith.
That's some apocalyptic shit, isn't it?
It was wild, dude. I've got some crazy videos that I could send you of me alone in a subway, like just alone, you know, because I was like, I'm 100% safe. You know, that's what they said back then.
Yeah.
So she said, hey, why don't you come to Barcelona and stay the summer with me, and we'll get to know each other, after 3 months of talking 6 hours a day. So I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. So I got on a plane. The law said I could. I had a piece of paper from the doctor saying I was recovered and had zero chance of getting COVID again. That's what the paperwork said. And I got through London. They stopped me at every border saying, what are you doing? You can't do this. And I'm like, yes, I can. Here's a paper from my doctor, and here's a QR code from the government in Spain saying that I can. And then I went through LA, went through London, got to Barcelona, and then she was 500 feet away from me, and the border's like, no, you can't come in. And I'm like, yes, I can. And they're like, no, you can't. The law changed 2 days ago.
Oh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is from your website. And they're like, no, we're sorry. If you would have had a direct flight, we would have let you in. But because you had a layover in London, you can't come. And they got my suitcase. And then they said, now you have to come with us to jail. And they made me, dude, it was crazy. They made me spend the night. Yes, sir. They made me spend the night in jail. They searched through my luggage. They took all my passport. I spent the night in jail. The next day, I had to fly home. They walked me onto the plane, police escort, after the plane was fully loaded, they handed my passport to an airline attendant. Everybody was looking at me like I was a criminal because cops escorted me to my seat. And then 2 days later, because my dad was in a Beatles cover band, I knew a lot about the Beatles. And I knew that John Lennon married Yoko Ono in Gibraltar, and that Gibraltar was technically Spanish soil owned by Brits. So 2 weeks later, we met in Gibraltar, and we got married the day we met.
Stop.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be the day we met. I asked her to marry me the day we met, and then we were going to get married 2 days later. But instead, because of COVID, even FedEx and DHL couldn't ship her birth certificate in from Sweden. So we had to wait because Sweden, everything's digital in Sweden, but Gibraltar's like, no, we need a physical birth certificate. So we ended up staying 2 weeks in Gibraltar until she got her birth certificate. Then we got married, and then we walked across the border, drove to Spain, and that's kind of how our story started.
That's unbelievable. And you just sprinkled in there for good crack. You were like, and by the way, the old man was in a Beatles cover band. Anyway.
Well, the reason for that is I have a picture. We got married in the exact same spot as John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And I have a picture where it's John Lennon and Yoko Ono in a black and white picture, and then me and her in a color picture in the exact same spot with the Rock of Gibraltar, like right behind us.
That's unbelievable.
That's wild, dude. It's crazy.
Jesus Christ. At some point, though, because I imagine you in jail and you've got that mustache and shaved head and you're gone, you know what, and you're handy with your fists. It was like, maybe you should go, what are you doing? Just go full Hardy, go full.
Well, this was pre-mustache, but I had like when he opened up my bag, I had like full boxing gear in there because I was like, oh, I'm going to continue boxing. Because in New York, I boxed every day, and I worked at a boxing gym during the day and did comedy at night, like a famous boxing gym in New York. And so people didn't fuck with me because I didn't sleep on the pillow. I slept on my boxing gloves. So they're like, oh, this guy can fight. Then nobody fucked with me.
Say no more. Say no more. Yeah. And when did you take up boxing then?
Oh, since I was a kid.
Really?
My dad was Golden Gloves.
Really?
Yeah.
While being in a Beatles cover.
He was a madman. I was in Golden Gloves. He was a madman.
Still, though, at the same time, it's nice to take up something like boxing early doors, isn't it? Like, because
oh yeah, definitely. Especially when you're an immigrant kid from a country that people don't like, in a country that people don't like. You know, like in America, they didn't much care for Arabs even before 9/11 or any of that stuff. Like when I was a kid, I remember watching the news, and if they talked about gas prices on the news, I'd be like, oh shit, I'm gonna get jumped. Because what would happen is these American parents would be like, oh, gas prices are up, goddamn Arabs. And then the kids would come to school and go, I know one of those. And then they beat me up. They try to beat me up.
Christ almighty. Yeah. What a thing. Like, you know what I mean? You know, some kids just have to get out, you know, I've got a bit of a lisp. I better sort that out. You show up and because gas prices got raised in another continent. You're like, what? I didn't fucking raise them. Like,
it was crazy. It was nuts. Like I literally would watch it was like a weather report for beatings. I'd watch the news and be like, oh, if they talk about Arabs, I had to worry, you know?
So, but then you properly settled down and everything, because is it Spain you bought the house?
No. So what happened was when we were in Barcelona, and when we were in Barcelona, the thing that drove me crazy is that she'd already lived there for 8 years. So I'd be like, oh, let's go do this. And she's like, that's tourist shit. And I'm like, okay, let's go do that. She's like, oh, that's no good. And I'm like, God damn it, I just moved here. and I'm like, maybe we need to move to a place together. And then, the stuff with Trump got really bad in America. My mom had an accent, and I knew I wanted her to move to Europe. And Portugal just had, a great combination of things where it was really easy for my mom to move there if she bought property. So we went and looked in Portugal. We found a place that we loved, and we bought a place there. And my mom bought a place 20 minutes away by train. So we kind of relocated there. And then the deal was Anna already had an apartment in Malmo. And then I had like a little place in London. So that's how come we're in 3 places now. It was like we have where we rest is Lisbon. And then where I work as far as comedy goes is I perform comedy in English in, London and UK. And now I'm learning Swedish so I can perform in Swedish in Sweden. I'm crazy.
I love it.
I mean, Swedes speak English perfectly well. I don't need to do it in Swedish, but I want to. And
of course, yeah.
Every once in a while, I've been doing joke. I did a show where every comic was Swedish, and I was the only one in English. I did one joke in English, and the room exploded. Oh, I'm sorry, I did one joke in Swedish, and the room exploded. Yeah, and I was like,
course,
okay, this is cool.
You're enamoring yourself to the locals straight away.
Yeah,
those beautiful bastards that they are.
They really are. It drives me crazy. It's amazing how rapists can become so good looking and civilized centuries later.
Yeah. I mean, look, I suppose they picked the finer points that they wanted to pick. I'm sure there were some ugly ones back in the day. They scooped up a few good looking ones and just whatever they happened to do. But good Lord, they're good looking people. But I think, I don't know what did I hear you saying it before? It was like, yeah, but like you can be exotic in anywhere you go if you're a bit odd,
Yeah.
Because
definitely
a guy I hadn't seen in years, he messaged me on Facebook maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. It's just about a thing. And I hadn't seen this guy since I was like 17, 18. And he was a big old unit. He played rugby with me and stuff, but he was a fucking tank. He looked like a fridge with red hair, big thick glasses. And he was always kind of angry and stuff. Because I suppose he was whatever. I remember he was a bouncer. And out of nowhere, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. Nobody fully knows. I didn't see in Asia. And he turns up and I looked at his profile picture. He's fully in Japan, like has been like 15 years.
Wow.
But he's full, Japanese wife. He's in full gear and everything in the picture. And I'm chatting. I was like, what fucking hell, man? How did this? He goes, went there just for the hell of it, just to teach English for like a month. Loved it. And I said, well, what did you love about it? He said, I was the coolest thing for miles. My big fucking red head walking around.
Yeah.
And people were just looking at him like he was Godzilla too, because he's like 6'6", 6'7".
Shit.
This beast walking down the road with a big fiery red hair. So immediately it was the most interesting thing, which he'd never been before.
I think it's good for the planet, man. I think it's a really healthy thing for people to live in places they're not supposed to live.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Another mate of mine. They were in just pre-lockdown. They'd been in China. They were at some tourist thing, whether it's the Great Wall or whatever. But they kept on getting stopped because while he's American and he has a sallow skin and stuff, his wife, who's Irish, snow blonde hair, blue eyes, she kept on getting stopped for photographs with her. Forget about the fucking Great Wall. It was the oddest. She's like, what is going on?
That's hilarious.
They're just pointing, going, ha! Delighted to have met this woman who was so different.
They're like, I met a ghost. That's so fun. What's so funny? I don't know why it's so cute when Japanese people do it, but when white people do it, it's so racist, right?
Oh,
like I've had Japanese people come up to me, look me dead in the face, and go, "Oh," like that, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't do it the other way." But it is.
No, you
cute.
can't.
It's so cute when they even in London. I said this the other night. Like, even toxic masculinity is cuter in a foreign country. Like in America, it's like grab her by the pussy, but in London, it's like grab her by the fanny. Like, oh, that's cute. That's so much cuter.
Yeah. All right. I mean, if you did it in Bronson's accent, though, that's the only thing it changes it. If you do look at Devon accents, like grab her by the fanny, that's cute. But you do it like a fucking East End, grab her by the fucking fanny. It changes the gear.
It's scary. Yeah, it makes me even cross my legs when I heard that gravel in your voice.
When did you? What? So you bought in Portugal? I loved it. I've told about 17 people about this. What a way to live! bouncing between. It's Copenhagen, isn't it? And
Yeah,
or is it Malmo? Did you say?
Well, Malmo, but it's funny because Malmo is like the second biggest city in Sweden, but it's so close to Denmark that my wife's accent is even hard for me to understand. I understand Swedish, but her accent has so much Danish in it because her house is only 20 minutes away from Copenhagen, but hours away from Stockholm and a couple hours away from Gothenburg. No, Malmo's the third biggest city, I think, because there's Stockholm, Gothenburg, and then I think Malmo. But yeah, her accent has so much Danish in it. They call it Skånska or Skåne in the south of Sweden. And they're very Danish. And yeah, it's only 20 minutes over the bridge. And now that they built the bridge, Copenhagen and Malmo are like, it's as if you live in the same place.
But bounce between all three. So is it a set? Do you do a set week in each, like, or what way do you work it?
Yeah, I mean, the game plan now is what I told Anna was like, after the things started opening up, the calendar was going to control me till the end of the year. I just had to like let people know, I just get on the radar.
Yeah.
And let people know that I live here now. I'm not just because I was coming in every August and I'd stay for the month when everybody else was at the Fringe. I'd come and work and headline clubs around like the UK. And so now I was like, I have to let people know that I live here and I have to let them see me. Because you know what it's like when people see you perform live, it's a lot different than you sending a stupid clip, of your comedy. So yeah, the goal was to gig as much as possible. And my wife's been amazing about it. She's been super understanding. And then come January, I think the plan's going to be 2 weeks every month in London, 1 week every month in Sweden, and then 1 week at home and writing and being together. And the nice thing is she works remotely, so she can meet me in Sweden for one of those weeks or meet me in London for one of those weeks. So we're together 2 weeks a month and then I'm on the road 2 weeks.
And it's a gorgeous spot too you got in Portugal, wasn't it?
Oh, we're so lucky, man. It was such a freak accident too. Like it's on the street where they invented fado music.
What?
Which is like, yeah, man. Which is like the most calming music because it's music that this famous prostitute sang about a man that was away on a boat that she missed. So it was about like something that you lost that you don't think you'll ever get back. So it's like this, it's kind of like Portuguese blues in a way.
Yeah.
And our street is filled with fado houses. So at night when we're going to bed, you could just faintly hear fado singers singing in the street. It's crazy. It's the oldest neighborhood in all of Portugal. It's called Alfama. And it's like really windy streets. And like there's a cathedral on one end and a church on the other end. And we weren't supposed to get it. Like basically I was walking through the street and I saw a sign and I messaged my realtor and I said, hey, I found this place. And she said, oh yeah, it's really weird. It's 4 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms. And I was like, what? So I messaged Anna and I'm like, hey, this place looks dope and the street's amazing. It's a private street in a very touristy area, but it's private. You have to remote control where the pylon goes up and down, right? And I go, it's beautiful. And she goes, yeah, but what are we going to do with 4 bathrooms? What are you gonna, what are we going to have an office where you sit on a toilet and a desk? Like, it doesn't make sense, And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I called the realtor and it just kept bugging me. So I called the realtor back. I'm like, why would anyone have 4 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms? It doesn't make sense. And she goes, you're right. She called the realtor. The realtor made a mistake. And the house wasn't getting any offers because everybody thought it was 4 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms. So when we came in and made our offer, they accepted it right away because they had just lowered the price. So we got so lucky.
So they'd written it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it was like, we couldn't have afforded anything more. So we got really lucky, but we loved it.
And has your mother moved over with you?
Yeah, she lives in an area called Carcavelos, like 20 minutes by train. Nice little beach town. She's already got more friends than we do. It's crazy.
Of course.
Yeah. She's like super friendly. And like the first week she was there, she was sending me pictures from the beach with her hand on her hip. And I'm like, who's taking your picture? She's like, oh, this is my friend Anne. I'm like, who the fuck is Anne? She's friends with people that don't even speak the same language. Like I don't know if they're like just sign languaging each other the whole time. It's bananas. But yeah. She's a very friendly sort, and she's made so many friends already. It's great.
That's brilliant. But did I remember correctly? Did you sell a cartoon? Oh, what?
Yeah, I was part of a cartoon that got sold. Yeah, to NBC.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm stoked about it.
What cartoon was it?
It's called Tantrum Jesus, but basically the premise is everybody knows about Jesus's life as an adult, but nobody knows about his life as a kid. And
brilliant.
Yeah, and then and since his mom was a human being, we thought his big human flaw was his inability to control his temper. But since he was the son of God, when he lost his temper, terrible things would happen. So, yeah, it's great. I mean, the world of Bethlehem is so fun to play with. So we've been having a lot of fun with it. And then I sold my portion, but I still help out with the writing and the rewrites, and it's looking good. So far, so good.
That's class.
Cheers.
At what stage then did you? So you're a young Egyptian lad, fucking fighting for your life, basically. But what stage then? Like, were you obviously the boxing and stuff? Were you sporty? Other than that.
No, I mean, it's funny. I was a sporty kid, like genetically. It's kind of a weird thing being Egyptian because it is in Africa. So we've got some good genes. And like I was always like a strong kid. Like I was always a really strong kid. And even it's funny, the first time I played American baseball, I'll never forget this. I was playing American baseball. I didn't know how to play. They put me in T-ball, where you put a ball on a thing and then you hit it. And then I'd always just hit it lightly and run to the base. And then one time the coach goes, "Hey, okay, we're at this practice. Is anybody who hits it into the outfield, you get to hit again. Like It's a reward, right?"
Okay.
And then I looked at the coach. I'm like, "Oh, do you want me to hit it far?" And he goes, and he just looked at me and goes, "Yeah, hit it far. That's what I want." He's like, "If you can, hit it over the fence." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And he goes, "You didn't know that?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Okay." So then I went, I'm like, whack. And I hit like a home run. And he goes, "Jesus." He goes, "Can you do that again?" And I go, "Yeah." And I just like I was just whacking home runs. And then the coach was like, "Holy shit." He's like, "What do you feed this kid?" And so I became like this star baseball player in school. Went from T-ball I played all the way through like college, but I was good at hitting shit.
Yeah, you had that man strength from early doors. Yeah, no gym in the world is going to give you that. Sure, it's not like.
Yeah, no, I think my frame too. I'm like, I was even before I got into weightlifting, I was like a barrel-chested kid, and like just even playing football, I was like, I scored a goal from midfield one time. Like one time I hit a penalty shot and I hit the ball and it hit the ref in the head. And the referee passed out. So I was a strong kid. I was like freakishly strong.
Yeah, I've noticed it's moving back to the country. I thought I was always, country strong still, but it kind of wore off a bit as I was in the city. Since I've moved back to the country, and you're seeing these old men with huge triceps just walking around. Like I'm just in a hardware the other day, just getting some screws or whatever, and every bloke around me, while they may have a bit of a belly, they all have these massive big thick backs. You're like, these guys would fuck up any gym goer. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, comedy's definitely domesticated my frame for sure. but I used to look like a gorilla. Like really? People would. I actually made a conscious when I would walk down the street. If I saw a girl, I'd walk to the other side because I made them nervous. Because I mean, I have a big scar right here, and then they'd be like, and I was much bigger. I mean, I think now I probably weigh. I'm gonna try to do this in European measurements, right? I think I weigh 85 kilograms, and I think like at my biggest, I probably weighed 100 kilograms.
Jesus,
and wasn't fat. I mean, I was like a big dude. It was like 220. Yeah, like 220, 225 pounds.
That's thick.
That's thick. I was thick. And I was just like big old neck. Like I was a freak.
I put up a picture a couple of months back of an old passport picture of me. And like same as that, I was probably in around 97, 98 when I was playing rugby.
Oh,
like
wow.
It's like 17-inch fucking neck. I couldn't find jeans to fit me because my thighs were like 26 inches each. It was just big fucking arse on me and stuff, just walking around like a fucking silverback. But weirdly, I looked older in that picture than I do now. Like it was just because I had a big old fucking angry face on me. Like come on, take the picture. You know, I that.
Yeah. I was the same way. I was pissed off all this time. I didn't realize how angry of a person I was till I got married. Then my wife, my Swedish wife, was like, "Why do you always yell at the TV?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Why is every show you watch people bleeding?" And then slowly like went from UFC fights to RuPaul's Drag Race to like, "Hey, let's go watch the sunset." Like, and isn't this a beautiful tree? Like, I've changed a lot in the last year and a half. Yeah.
Isn't it like I didn't realize, that's funny as I didn't realize I'd softened until like a friend of mine had said, he goes, "Oh no, you're walking around like a ball of fucking on fire petrol, like all the time. Like you were just
Yeah.
Thank God that woman came along like and calmed you." I was like, "Really? Was I that bad?"
Oh,
Like, are you fucking joking me? Everything.
It's
You'd have
so
veined
true.
on the middle of your forehead continuously, just
Oh, dude, me too. It was so exhausting. So exhausting.
Yeah, that's a true point. Just walking around ready to fight all the time. Like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. And I think I had a crazy person's face. I remember one time, I actually played rugby in university as well. And I remember one time I got raked across the chest by a guy's boots.
Yeah.
And I had this big like mark across my neck, and I'd split my lip open. Like it was we played a rugby match versus the Marine Corps. It was Cal Poly Pomona versus the Marine Corps, and it was a rough game. So I was my mom was driving me home, and I had the seat all the way back, right? And my mom was stopped at a light, and the light went from red to green, but she was talking to me. So then this car honked really hard and then went around her, and the guy looked in the car and goes, "Pay attention, you dumb bitch."
Oh.
And then I lifted the seat up, so I went up like Frankenstein, like, and the guy just looked at me, and he just went, and his wheels like spun.
Who's this monster that just sat up? Yeah.
Oh, dude, it must have been the look on my face, because the guy, he went from aggressive to the fear of God in him. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever experienced, but I'm not like that in any way. And it's funny because like, that's what my dad was like. And I remember my dad being like that. Like, I remember when I was a kid one time in the olden days, you drive up, you park your car at a gas pump, and then you'd leave your car there. You'd walk inside and say, "Oh, I'm going to pay at number 2." And so that's what my dad did. Said, "Oh, I left me in the car, went inside, told the guy, $10 on number 2 or whatever." And then the guy told him, "Oh, number 2's broken. You got to drive up to number 4. So then my dad paid $10 for number 4. But by the time he came out, a construction truck had pulled into 4. So I'm sitting in the car, and I just see my dad, kind of a little dude. He only weighed like 140 pounds, or probably 70 kilos, 60 kilos, and he walks up, and there's this massive construction worker. And my dad walks up to him, and at first he was really polite and goes, "Hey, sorry, this pump's broken. I paid for this one." And the guy looks at my dad and goes, well, then go pay for another one. And my dad goes, "No, I paid for this one." And the guy goes, "Well, too bad. I already moved my car." And all I saw, I went to open the door, and my dad looked, because I was a bodybuilder, my dad was, and then my dad looked at me and goes, "Stay in the car." And his voice changed and his face changed. And then my dad turned around, and I just saw him looking up like this, like his head was like this. And all I saw was a construction worker's face. And I saw his face just change from like anger towards my dad to just the fear of God. Like, I don't know what my dad said, but the guy got in his car and didn't drive to another pump. He drove away. Like, how did this tiny little Arab man like scare this huge construction worker like that? But I never wanted to be like that.
Yeah.
It was, I didn't want to be like that. It was just like, I feel like I was bitten by a vampire, and I turned into my dad. All the things I didn't want to be, I became. And then, it wasn't until I got older, and then the testosterone started to run out of my body, and the anger started to leave my body because I started going to therapy. I never wanted to be that kind of person.
And what age do you reckon it started to wear down a small? You started self-reflecting too and going, here, I need to wind this in a small bit. I
mean, I didn't even know there was anything wrong with me till I started comedy, really.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I started comedy, that's the good thing about comedy. It's one of the most honest mirrors you'll ever have.
Yeah.
When you're an angry dude, your friends are sometimes a funhouse mirror. They tell you, they're like, "Oh, you look skinny." And then you look away from the mirror and you don't.
You don't. Yeah.
And I remember I had this mentor in comedy. I was trying to write a joke about my dad, and it was a dark joke. You know, it was something like, "Oh, have you guys ever met someone that bullied you so badly you hated everyone with his name?" And the audience starts laughing. I'm like, "That's why I hate guys named Dad." Because he was a bully. You know, he used to beat the shit out of me. You know.
Did he?
Oh yeah, dude. And he didn't mean to. He just had a temper. Like the craziest story is that one time my dad's alarm clock went off and he didn't wake up, and I went to wake him, but he was a boxer and his reflex, he hit me. And I ended up with a black eye. And I was young, you know, and my dad, you know, it startled my dad. I think he felt bad. He left for work and I was home alone. I was a latchkey kid. So I was embarrassed because it was getting worse and worse. And I was heading to school and I was like, shit, I don't want my dad to get in trouble. So I went in the bathroom. I used my mom's makeup to cover it up.
Yeah.
But I didn't do a good job. You know? So I get to school and the kids look at me. They're like, that guy's wearing makeup. He's gay. And then they hit me in the other eye. And I went home with 2 black eyes, you know, and I was like, and I think that's what made me an angry kid. I was an angry kid. I got bullied at school. I got bullied at home. And then, you know, but then when I got into comedy, I started making all these jokes about my dad. Right. And then the guy that was teaching me comedy goes, oh, you know how you were saying your dad's an asshole? Here's what I would say about your dad being an asshole. You know, your dad's an asshole. And I was like, and I just felt this boiling. Like, I can call my dad an asshole.
Yes,
you can't call my dad an asshole. And then the guy just saw the anger in me and he goes, listen, I'm not comfortable with you in my class. He goes, but I'll tell you something that I haven't told anybody before. I think you're a natural comic. And I think you could be a very good comic. And I love the stuff that you're talking about, but I'm not going to have you in my class unless you go to therapy. And I was like, what? I'm like, who are you to tell me this? And I didn't do it. And I ignored him. And then a year later, I found out that my junior high school girlfriend, this is wild, married Dick Van Dyke.
Yes. What? As in like Mary Poppins Dick Van Dyke. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Arlene Silver. She was my junior high school girlfriend. And I remember like and they're great together. They really are. They go great together. I mean, there's a massive age difference.
Yeah.
Obviously. It's funny. I was at the wedding and I was at a table with all the high school friends. And at that table, one of the girls' husbands was drunk. And what, you know, what drunk people are like when they find out you're a comedian, they think they could just tell you all the worst shit. So he starts talking. He's like, oh, isn't it crazy that she's married to that old guy? And I'm like, dude, stop it. We're in his home at their wedding in this beautiful place in Malibu. And actually, they're a great couple and they're very much in love. And, you know, I don't want to fucking talk to you. And I don't want people to think I know you. So I go, I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I excuse myself. I go to the bathroom, and outside the bathroom is this old dude in a seersucker suit and with like gray hair, gray beard. And he looks at me and he goes, you must be friends with the bride. I go, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I went to school with Arlene. I'm like, how about you? How do you know Dick? And he goes, oh, Dick's my dad. And I'm like, oh, and then the age difference really hit me. I'm like, holy shit. But, you know, when I was there, Arlene's brother became a comedian and it sparked the interest in me again to go back. So I went to therapy and, you know, figured out all the stuff that was making me angry and why anger wasn't good for me and started writing. Like doing therapy and comedy at the same time was fucking magic.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Because I mean, they're rooting up all the shit that you hadn't even thought about before. And you're like, well, now we can put this pen to paper.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it was great.
Yeah. I think mine stemmed weirdly from the fact that I went to school in an environment and even I was in the town recently and it's a place, as my wife, who comes from a very nice place, very happy place outside Dublin, and everybody's very nice and they all hug. They all do things like hugging each other, which just blew my fucking mind. Like for the day one, like they say things like "I love you" to each other. Oh my Jesus Christ! But we're in this town the other day driving through, and she was like, "It would not inspire any smiles, would it?" I went, "That's the nicest thing you could say about this place, to be honest with you. It wouldn't inspire smiles, and it didn't. It was just war every day. It was just like it was just everybody had a hardened face." And for no good reason, really. I mean, it wasn't wasn't that, I mean, it wasn't particularly affluent town, but it was just, there's a hard edge to everybody, fighting after school every day. You know, that kind of, there was just a hardened edge to everybody. And then you bring that forward then, and I started in the construction industry, even if it was engineering and stuff, but it's still, I was working in a very male aggressive place. So by the time I came out the end of it, I think I was a bit of an anomaly when I met people on the Irish comedy scene, because they were like, what the fuck is with this? You know, even though I was pleasant and good crack to hang around with, they're like, this fella's a fucking lunatic. But it was kind of based off of that more than anything else, I think. It was just,
wow, that's wild.
It seemed to be a fit in. You fit in if you're aggressive, because as soon as you're in any way soft in those environments, you're just going to get steamrolled.
Oh, 100%. Dude, in the neighborhood I grew up in, if you smiled, you got jumped.
Yeah.
You got jumped. And it's funny because in Mexican culture, they often give you a nickname that's the opposite of what you are. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
If a guy's real tall, they call him shorty. If a girl's fat, they call her slim, things like that. They used to call me Joker because I never smiled. I learned you do not laugh outdoors, you laugh at home. But if I laughed in the street, they'd look at you like, why are you happy? What's your problem? And then they'd want to take out, they're like, hey, prove that they're men and jump you. Because in the area I lived in, you had a lot of Mexican gangs and stuff. But I ended up being friends with a lot of those guys after, which became a big problem because when you're an immigrant, you evolve like through a larger portion of the socioeconomic ladder than a normal person would, because you come in more poor than you should be. And then you end up hanging out with these people. And so I was hanging out with these kids that were in gangs and going to jail. So it was a real trip when I ended up, years later going to college. And then when Facebook came out, I had these friends from college that were like, Tamer, you're so stupid. And then my friends from their old name would be like, fuck you, bro. You call him stupid, essay.
I love that.
I'm like, no, separate these guys.
Oh, you got
but it was really sweet too, it was really sweet. And I love those friends, but they're just, I can't mix them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm like that. I ran into a couple of guys very recently and I was like, oh, you haven't progressed at all, boys. Jesus. Yeah. You've just gotten angrier. And like, it was funny. One of the guys in particular, he couldn't deal with the fact that it was very strange. Like he's my age and he could not deal with the fact that I had gone and done something different.
Yeah.
And he literally, while all three of the guys we were chatting to, and he just looked off at like a 45-degree angle, like I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like there was a really interesting billboard over there for the full 2 minutes of the conversation, and just walked off when they walked off. It was a very odd moment. And even they were kind of, we'll just talk through the fact that he's being really weird right now. Anyway, see you around.
Yeah.
And just walk. I was like, but you could see it was just eating the guy alive. Why would you fucking leave? Why would you want to go and do that thing that makes people happy?
Yeah. It's weird. It's because they look at your life through the lens of theirs.
I guess
right?
so,
like,
yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, you must kill with Middle Eastern crowds. And I'm like, no, I don't. They usually, sometimes I do, but sometimes Middle Eastern crowds don't like me if they're conservative. Because they'll look at me as, hey, you're supposed to be one of us.
Oh, you're a detractor, like right?
Us. Yeah, you don't act like, how come you're not acting like us? Then now that makes me look at myself and go, how come I don't get to act like that? How come you don't follow the rules? How come I'm a dog on a leash and you're a dog running in the woods? It's too much freedom, they get angry.
Yeah. That's an interesting, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Because I couldn't put it together. I was like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? Like this is, and it was a sheesh moment where we're all the four of us barred out. It was like, oh, all right.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. You made it like, for anybody listening, you have to follow Tamer. He's very easy to find. He'd be one of the few people called Tamer. But just a little, I like this, like the night we did. In fairness, everybody killed that night. But you had nuggets. There was a fucking bit about a rock band, and I'm not gonna burn that bit. But oh my God, it was. It just do you know when a piece of comedy, especially as comedians, just washes over, you're like, oh, I want all of that on my face now.
It's so funny. It's such a hard joke for me to say. It breaks my heart every time.
It's But that's the thing. It's so hard. Like it wouldn't make any sense me mentioning a joke like that. Also, they go, you're being fucking racist, Tom. But the fact that you have you've got one foot inside the line, albeit you're American, you've got a foot inside the line. I can say this, my friend.
Well, now I gotta say it. Now I gotta say it because we're on the podcast, right?
I know, but it's so good.
So I have a Muslim dad and a Jewish mom. So people are like, wow, how did a Muslim man convince a Jewish woman to fall in love with him? And I go, my dad's no regular Muslim. He was in an Arab rock band. They traveled all around the country throwing rocks at women. Dude, you know what's so funny? Like Eliza Schlesinger, honestly, is my favorite comedian. Like, honestly.
Oh, she's a killer.
She's such a killer. And her audience is like, a lot of dudes, actually. She's so good, she transcends. But there's feminist messages in there as well. Not like feminist in an obnoxious way, because she's super fair. She'll say men are better at this and women are better at that, whatever. But there's no way I could say that joke on stage.
Although I would personally,
I couldn't say it.
The comedian in me would want to be at the back of the 5,000 seater last night as you tell that joke. I would want to be there. I would want to be there because you know why I'd want to be there. I'd want to see not only, yes, I love that joke, but at the same time, just to watch everybody's faces, to just go, oh, did he just say that joke? Did he just say that joke? It's like, I remember seeing Anthony Jeselnik. I can't remember who he went on ahead of. She was a super famous. I was drunk and I was on the same festival, but my gigs were done that day. Oh Christ.
I love him.
Jeselnik, do you know what I mean?
He's just so good.
He swings so fucking hard that you probably want to be stupid to not enjoy it.
Yeah. And he couldn't be a nicer guy.
Oh,
could not be a nicer guy.
I was chatting with him afterwards. And he's a lovely man. But I should have been able to remember, but it wasn't somebody as big as Sarah Silverman. Was it Michelle Wolf? He was open. He was just happened to be on the lineup with and a gang of girls. Now most people that were there were 50-50 and comedy fans, but there was there's a group of I've seen her anything and I want to go say and she was nothing like what they were hoping for, to be honest, because she came out swinging like a fucking savage. Especially when the TV cameras aren't on you, you're gonna go hard.
For sure.
But Jeselnik, because it was the perfect marriage, Jeselnik was on before him, and to watch it more than anything, because he actually copped me watching him. He goes, "You seem to enjoy them more." I says, "I did." They were squirming in every direction. They were furious at you, and also you're good looking, so that was really bothering them too. Do you know? So as comics, I think we watch it a bit differently. You're going, "Oh, like that joke, that rocks joke. Oh my god."
Oh, cheers! Thanks.
It washed over.
That means a lot, dude. You guys, I had such a fun week with you guys. Like, you're a killer. Everybody was great. That was just such a fun week. It felt cool to be in the presence of such great comics. Like, everybody was great.
It's a great environment. The Laughter Lounge does breed a good environment, strong, because you got to bring your game to the Laughter Lounge. Like, there's no, and it keeps the standard up. Then that kind of way. Plus, I think Irish people there's probably a decent standard because we all think we're fucking funny, and it is. You
guys are.
It definitely is. What it is here is it's a currency. Humor is a currency here. Like, literally, you can not be in any way wealthy in society, but if you're funny to talk to the guy over the fence, then you both got to be funny to each. Like, it's worth everything more than actually what physically you got in the bank to be funnier, or that's just great. As funny, because it's. I don't know where it stems from. I'm sure it's 800 years of repression or something. Maybe does that or whatever. I don't know, but it definitely does seem to be a thing where a lot of people in Ireland are good to chat. We're all fucking talkers. Long time with no TV as well. We only had 2 channels right up until the 90s. Like, so.
Yeah, same in Egypt, actually. But dude, honestly, if somebody were to ask me, of all the people you've met on your travels, who are the funniest people by nationality, I wouldn't even hesitate. It's Irish. Immediately. Like, just the average person who is like, who are the funniest group of people, like, as a culture, Irish straight away. Yeah,
they've so many old women here. Actually, the elderly women here are some of the fuck. They cut you in half with stuff. And I talked to a bit. I'm trying to work it. It's I'm not landing it right yet. I've only done it twice, so I need to you know yourself, you got to twist the thing a few times. I know it's in there. Like, and it talks about basically the last bastion of societal acceptance of creepiness, and men have lost it. We've all lost it. Like, nobody has it anymore. You can't be creepy anymore. And I said the last bastion of good, healthy creepiness that's accepted, especially in Irish society, is like early 60s, late 50s women. They can be as creepy as they fucking want, and it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And this woman, I remember, and it was stemming from a story from years ago. I was like 18, and I didn't come home much at the weekends from college because I was away playing rugby and stuff. But there's one particular weekend I came home, and my parents went, "Do you want to meet for a bite to eat in this bar that's, you know, it's a country bar, but do you want to, and we'll have a drink maybe or whatever." And I said, "Yeah, cool, this would be great." So I got off the bus, walked over to this old woman who's actually not old, like she's maybe 60, but she's like a raving alcoholic. She's just asleep at the bar, and everybody just kind of walks by. That's what she does. She's done it forever. Yeah. And she wakes up, and she hadn't seen me since I was like 12 or whatever. And she just comes over all drunk, smelling a fucking, you know, Powers whiskey, and she's like, and she's just standing over my shoulders, just kind of grinding her, and she's talking over my head to my parents, going, "God, he's turned into a fine looking boy, hasn't he?" And my parents they're laughing their asses off, going, "This is fucking funny." And he's going, and she's like whispering into my ear, "God, if I was only 20 years younger." And I'm going, "You were probably an ugly bitch back then too, you know." But I didn't, because I'm only 18. I don't know what to say, and I'm welling up.
Yeah.
And my father thought this would be hilarious to say, and he went, "Oh, hey, if the two of you, if you're, you know, be safe. That's all I'm saying. Just be safe. The two of you are gonna be safe, because I'm not ready to be a granddad just so yet."
Mean.
And I'm, of course, dying fucking red all the way up to my fucking scalp. I'm fucking dying with embarrassment. And the ball didn't even hit the ground. And she just retorted back. She goes, "I wouldn't worry about that, Bill." Bill is my old man's name. "I wouldn't worry about that, Bill. You can't weld cold iron." And gives a wink. And you're like, "Can't." Oh, you're barren. That's basically what you're barren. So you can't, yes, you cannot weld. Oh my. But just, and like, gave me an odd kiss on the cheek and stumbled back to her stool. And my parents, fucking hilarious. But I was like, flip that, make that a sister. And her husband did that. The man would have been fucking shot before he even
totally.
You know, but it's the last healthy bastion of creepiness. Like, but
I love it. That's awesome, man. There's something extra cool. There's two, like, I love when old women hit on you and when plus size Black women hit on you.
Oh,
those are the two. Oh man, there's nothing like a plus size Black woman in New York when you walk by and they go, "Oh, you looking good, baby." And I'm like,
you're like, "Thank you so much." I know.
Made my day.
It's still to this day. A lot of Irish students, they get this visa. They can get a visa called J1, and the J1 visa allows you to work for 90 days in the States. You pay your taxes, but weirdly you get them all back at the end, so it's like you've been saving, you know. But loads of them go to Boston. We went to Boston this one summer, and I never worked. This lady, her name is Trinita, and she must have been tipping 300, 320. She was a big girl, but everybody loved her because she was just never in bad form. She was always in top form, tip-top form. She'd come in, the hair would be done every day. We were security guards. We didn't secure fucking anything, but she'd have the nails done. And she used to call me white chocolate. I was like, I know it was, but she was pinching my ass and stuff. I was just going, "Oh, stop it," you know, just. But exactly like that. Trinita, that was her name.
That's awesome.
Oh, but still, she still brings a smile to my face to think about how, you know, how she could get away with it, and I was happy to let her.
I'll tell you, it's people ask me all the time, like, what do you miss? You know, it's been almost 2 years now that I've been in Europe, and honestly, one of the things I miss the most are Black people, like American Black people, especially in like New York. Like like half my friends were Black, especially in comedy.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I really feel like I miss them. I miss Black culture.
Yeah.
In a way, like of course there's Black culture here, but it's not the same. It's different, you know?
Oh, it's completely
totally different.
Born out of a completely different place as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see Black culture is like adopted by so many cultures around the world, and you see it, like, even, it's really funny. Like I told my wife I was trying to learn Swedish from listening to Swedish hip hop, but like Swedish hip hop, all the words I'm learning are Arabic. Right. Like every other phrase is Salam Alaikum and Habibi, and I'm like, what? This is like so it's like a mashup between like American hip hop and then like North African Arabs who are immigrants. So it's such a trip. But Black culture here is amazing too. But I just miss like Black culture from New York, and especially New York.
Yeah, and also, I mean, to roll into it, I suppose it's probably based out of the same place. Why I think myself and Trinita talked about this, because we're often on the desk together, was that the Irish mindset and the Black mindset probably comes from a lot of the same place, in that being repressed for so long.
Yeah.
You know, and you come out, you gotta be fucking, you gotta laugh at it afterwards. You gotta, well, that was a bit shit.
100%. I mean, that's where a lot of it comes. It's funny because even you know that Eminem movie 8 Mile?
Yeah.
It's about battle rapping.
Yeah.
Well, the street name for battle rapping used to be called Playing the Dozens. Right. And the reason why they called it Playing the Dozens is it comes from slavery. Like they used to sell slaves one at a time unless there was something wrong with the slave. Then they would sell them by the dozen. So there to be 12 slaves in a cage, and those slaves would make fun of each other. And that's where battle rapping came. Yeah.
Wow.
That's where battle rapping came from. That's where your mama jokes came from. It's from playing the dozens, and Playing the Dozens turned into battle rapping. And even insult comedy, I think, really stems from that, and it comes from pain, you know, like, or the fighting darkness with light. And so there's, I think, any group of people that's gone, no more than the Black community for sure, but every other group that's gone through that kind of pain always finds humor. You can see it with Jewish people, you can see it with Irish people, with Black people, and with lots of other people, you know.
Yeah, because it was a friend of mine that said that he's originally, although he looks so Irish, it's not even funny. He's like a big, strong fellow with red hair, and he's from Miami, and he's Jewish, you know. And but he fits in here. He looks just walking around. It's like, I've never fitted in better anywhere. Like, but but he'd lived in New York, but he said the same thing. He's very, very funny, very quick. That's why he enjoys it here so much, because you know, his father-in-law is Irish, and he's very fast fucker the way they talk. But he had said the same thing. Because sure, I mean, stand-up comedy was, you know, a Jewish thing for the most part, for a large part, was created in New York in a lot of ways, like by the Jewish people. So by the same token, you wrote a tweet, and this is why people should follow Tamer, whatever format. You wrote a tweet that there's just I love silly brains, and you wrote a tweet the other day. I walked away thinking about it, going, I'm not even going to read. I will retweet it, but I need to physically tell my sister this, because she loves silly thoughts as well. And it was about when you were a kid that you thought all toilet bowls were carved out of giant teeth.
I really did.
This is where my brain is at. This is where my brain.
I was like, oh, porcelain is just like made from teeth. So we're just pissing and pooping in teeth, like whale teeth, dinosaur teeth. Dude, when I was a kid, I was an idiot. I when you're an only child, you have no older brother, no older sister, you come up with wacky ideas. Like, I used to think, I didn't know what girls' genitals look like, but for some reason I was positive they had one ball. I had no idea what a vagina looked like, but I was like, well, boys have 2 balls, girls have 1 ball. And I was like, that was like several months, I believe that. Like, just because there was no guidance. You know how gross a vagina would look if it had 1 ball? That would be the weirdest.
Straight away, that's all, like a half-size sack hanging just out of it, just for no reason, like like the back of somebody's throat. Just a little speed bag.
So noisy.
A little speed bag. Just...
It sounded like a horse running down the street. Just 3 balls banging up.
Oh, that's filled me with so much happiness. Tamer, where's the best place? I mean, like, follow do you keep your website updated? Because I mean, you cover a lot of bases being where you are.
I try to. I mean, Instagram is definitely the best. So it's at Tamer Kat, TamerKat. And then my website's where I put up all my shows. And but Instagram's where I promote everything and anything. I always go to Instagram first. And then but then my website's really good too for like specifics, like location and ticket prices and all that stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been an absolute joy. If not, we've just, I mean, just two mustachioed men just hanging out together.
It's been fun. I can't wait to hang out again.
Oh, absolutely, man. We will definitely tie you up again. This has been, it's been an absolute joy. Tamer Kattan.
Yeah, dude, you're awesome. You made a new fan out of me, dude. You killed at Laughter Lounge. You were so fucking funny. And it was so fun to be able to sit and laugh my ass off before I got on stage. It doesn't happen often. And you're great.
Oh, my pleasure. If anybody who can do the rocks, I'm clipping that out, by the way. That's I won't well, no, I'm not fucking leaving it in because it's such, no, it's just too good. I might just keep that to myself, telling nobody else about it. You can never tell that joke again, Tamer. That's for me. That's for me. Thanks a million, dude.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me. It was fun, dude. See you soon.
See you soon.